I got an email asking if I wanted to try out a new device that was going to revolutionize video games, especially virtual reality, by creating the sensations of actual motion. Of course, I said yes. The company in question actually sent the same email to a bunch of creators. I know this because they screwed up and used the CC line instead of BCC. And they did seem a little confused when I replied, so there may have been more than one mistake. Anyways, because of this, I know some of the other YouTubers they contacted, so I am rushing to get this video out before I'm beaten to the punch by the Action Lab, Daniel Thrasher, Technology Connections, or Tom Scott. One of the advantages of being a small-time operation is that I can have a fast turnaround since I don't have multiple cameras to cut between, sponsors to clear my videos with, a crew to coordinate with, or standards to live up to. So I'm hoping I can honestly say that you heard about this here first. So what is this device that enhances games? Well, here it is. They told me this was just a prototype, even though the final version is done and ready for sale. I get the feeling there were some nicer versions sent out to bigger channels. But hey, I know my place in the YouTube hierarchy. I'll take what I can get. This device is designed to influence your ear to make video games and especially VR games more realistic. Games these days can do amazing things with graphics and sound, but they can do very little to induce the feeling of motion. You can be taking a corner at 200 miles per hour or skydiving out of a bus, and all the motion you feel is the gentle rocking of your gaming chair. This project aims to do better. For these to make sense, I'll need to explain a small amount about how our bodies balance and sense motion and why that matters. This is directly related to things like seasickness or, the bane of my childhood, car sickness. My family did a lot of driving in my early days, and I was a voracious reader. However, I found that if I read for too long while in the car, I began to feel sick. The cause of this was fairly simple. I was staring at the book and not looking out the window. As a result, my eyes were telling my brain that I was stationary, but my inner ear said that I was moving. My brain received two contradictory messages and freaked out, which I will illustrate with this homage to a fellow YouTuber. It ain't familiar. This disconnect between the eyes and the inner ear is a major cause of many forms of motion sickness. So, how does the ear detect motion? I'm not even close to an expert on this, nor have I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express recently, so I'm going to massively simplify here. There are links in the description for more complete explanations if you want a deeper dive. Despite being very small, our inner ears are divided up into quite a few components. This part here, the cochlea, is the bit that does what you expect from an ear: decipher sounds and tell your brain what you're hearing. It is fascinating, but not what we care about today. This here, the semicircular ducts, and this, the utricle and saccule, are what the body uses to detect motion and acceleration. The three semicircular ducts are filled with a fluid called endolymph, which is very high in potassium. I do not fully understand why the potassium matters. I think something to do with electric currents, but every single video, explainer, and article that I looked at during my research mentioned it. So I'm saying it too, just to cover all my bases. When your head moves, the liquid moves with it, but slightly delayed, just like the fluid in this jar. This means that there's relative motion between your head and the liquid. The ducts have tiny hairs that detect this motion and relay it to the brain. Since the ducts are at roughly 90 degrees to each other on each of three axes, your brain can detect motion in each of our three spatial dimensions. Neat. Fun fact, in 1852, a scientist discovered that if one of the semicircular canals of a pigeon was damaged, it would fly in circles. The inner ear also uses the utricle and saccule to detect motion. These areas detect linear acceleration, a speeding up or slowing down rapidly, a sudden fall, etc. These things actually happen a lot more in video games than in real life. So to sum up, our ears do far more than just hear. They're also the primary way that we feel motion and acceleration, and that's where these come in. These are designed to let video games, and especially VR games, take the next leap in realism. This element here contains a small air compressor and interfaces with your computer via USB. Inside these devices that look like headphones, instead of a speaker driver, there are a series of very precise nozzles to direct airflow. Instead of directing sound waves to your cochlea, these direct blasts of air at the semicircular ducts and your utricle and saccule. They move the detector hairs and create precisely controlled sensations of motion and acceleration to match what is happening in-game. Now you can not only see and hear what your character is doing, but also feel it as well. There are some difficulties, of course. You might have already envisioned some of them. For starters, the internal geometry of every person's ear is slightly different. This means that before you can use these, you have to go through a rather lengthy calibration sequence that is occasionally very unpleasant until you get things dialed in for your specific ear shape. Secondly, while they look like headphones, there are no speaker drivers inside of them and no room for them either. This means that you need to either play sound through external speakers, and rather loudly too, since these are covering your ears,
Hey, listen!
Or find some other way to deliver sound. The inventors are experimenting with bone conduction and established technology whereby sound waves are directed to your cochlea, not through the ear canal, but through vibrating the bones in your skull. I may do a video on that one day, but for now, there are some links in the description if you want more info. Finally, these will only work with games specifically designed to take advantage of this technology. These devices have no way of knowing what is happening in the game, and therefore what signals to send, unless that information is specifically programmed into the game, and like all new technology, there's a catch-22. Developers don't like to spend the time, money, and manpower to implement a new technology if very few people will use it. And consumers don't want to spend money on new tech if there are no games that are using it. I think that has a lot to do with why the developers have begun approaching YouTubers for promotion. They're hoping to jumpstart demand for this tech by getting glowing reviews and excited coverage from powerful influencers. And me. Which brings me to my opinion about these, and the reason I have not said the device or developer's name and have blurred out their logo. I think these devices have great potential to help people with inner ear disorders and balance issues, which can have significant impact on quality of life. But the developers appear to have bypassed that idea entirely and gone straight to the multi-billion-dollar video game market, hoping to cash in. As far as I can see, there's no reason they couldn't have done both. I don't begrudge any company the ability to use their innovations to make money, but surely that needs to be balanced with a sense of responsibility to the greater good. On the other hand, I'm spending my time making bad jokes on YouTube, so I'm not in the best position to throw stones. The balance between the greater good and personal desires is a balance that these can't help with. But it is an idea that we should all explore just a little bit more. So yeah, it's been a couple weeks. I don't think the tea worked.